was having a conversation with someone who kept telling me about all the benefits of capitalism. And look, I'm not saying capitalism hasn't done amazing things for the world. Every building, every piece of technology, basically everything since the 1500s. Yeah, there's been progress. You can call it evolution. Things have gotten better. Innovation has happened. And most people want to hand that credit to capitalism. They say capitalism breeds innovation. My answer is yes, it does. But it breeds innovation from survival mode. From greed. That's the part people skip. Because if you strip capitalism down to a basic definition, it's just this. The greedy doing the most, taking the biggest one. In the early days, when capitalism was still new, yes, innovation was happening. People were inventing things, exercising their right to ownership, which matters. But here's what ownership does to a greedy person. Once you own something, you don't just want enough for your lifetime. You want enough for your kids, and their kids, and their kids' kids. That's capitalism's actual offer. The opportunity to take more than you could ever possibly use. The reason I say capitalism kills innovation, rather than breeds it, is this. Yes, we've had a ton of evolution, in technology, in pretty much every field, but a lot has been lost in the same stretch of time. And some of what we've evolved into, including what we've turned human beings into, is not the greatest. Take the health industry. Medicine has improved. We have better drugs, better diagnostics, but in the same breath, illnesses are worse. I know the counter. Maybe we just name them better now. Maybe we're catching things we used to miss. Fine, but I'd argue the illnesses we can actually identify have gotten worse. Cancer rates, drastically higher, and a huge part of that is the food industry. The food industry is poisoning people. It doesn't care about nutrition. It cares about margins. You've seen the videos. Every platform is full of them. Here are the brands to avoid, because they're padding your food with X and Y ingredients. A tin of tomatoes. Allegedly 40 to 80% of the contents is something other than tomato. 20–40% of it is actual food. If you're buying a tin of tomatoes, you expect 100% tomatoes. Maybe a splash of preservative. What you're getting is the opposite. And when you watch enough of those videos, you start connecting dots. The cancer rates, the diabetes, the ADHD, all these new conditions that have been introduced. Because at the end of the day, people stopped caring about the effects their innovations have on other people. And it's not new. It's been happening for a long time. We're just finally starting to look up and go, wait a minute. Same thing with medicine. There's a lot of credible reasoning, and a lot of reported cases, that say certain things have been cured. But the cures got buried, because the disease was more profitable. People have been pushed towards certain products, while the genuinely useful ones get suppressed. Now, the average person doesn't know how to handle a basic ailment at home. Everything is a trip to the doctor, and most of the time, you're not being cured. You're being given something that masks the symptoms, which, in the long term, creates worse problems. Because if you don't deal with the root cause, the problem doesn't go away. It hides, and it grows. That's probably why cancer looks the way it does. There were probably early symptoms for years. And when people got checked, they were sent home with a painkiller or an antacid. Headache gone, stomach fine, underlying issue, still there. We've also adopted new habits, new work cycles, new lifestyles, and we've convinced ourselves they're better. At least I can sit at home and watch TV. But there's nothing actually better about this. Most of the enjoyment comes from the fact that you're burnt out. I remember being a kid before any of this tech was really around. We still had fun. And people today will say, I'd be so bored if we didn't have a B and C. What would you even do without entertainment on tap? Netflix on demand? You do a lot, actually. That's the point. We've been put in boxes. And now people can't even imagine what they could do with a little bit of boredom. So the innovation we're seeing isn't real innovation. It's greed. Really, most of these companies are just trying to build monopolies and extract the maximum. I've been reading a book called Why Nations Fail. I'm on chapter 9. I've been drawn to it because I'm from Southern Africa myself. So anything about that region, I'm curious about what was going on at that time. And this chapter spells out something I think a lot of people miss. The West had already been doing the slavery thing for a while. And, thankfully, it didn't reach Southern Africa in the same way. But when Europeans came south and realized the climate wasn't killing them the way malaria was killing them up north, their reaction was basically perfect. This is where we set up our haven. They wanted to live there. They wanted to set up base, take over, and, if they could have, use the whole place for cheap labor, and eventually get rid of the population entirely. The way they did with Native Americans. It was about money. Again, slavery had always been about capitalism, about ownership. Not ownership for everyone, ownership for the rich, ownership for whoever's idea it was. And I don't think anyone should be able to own an idea, get paid for it, get credit, get praise, sure, but you'll hear things like, they've banned production of this clothing in every other region. How do you ban someone from doing the same thing you're doing? It's like saying, I invented fishing, so now no one else is allowed to fish. That's not innovation going in the right direction. That's not evolution. But that was the game. Keep competing with what the West was doing, except do it cheaper. And Africa got cast as the source of that cheap labor. Slavery was being abolished somewhere between the 1800s and the early 1900s. Don't quote me. And suddenly the profits from slave labor were drying up. So the West needed a new version of cheapness. Colonization became that. At first, some people took the deal, because a little income does sound better than no ownership at all. The first year, it sounds enticing, doesn't it? You get some money. You can do something for yourself. Why not? But eventually, the real reason surfaced. They wanted cheap labor, and they wanted to keep undercutting everyone else to protect their own profits. So when someone tries to hand me the capitalism breeds innovation line, here's what I actually hear. Capitalism breeds survival. Capitalism breeds extraction. Capitalism breeds monopolies. Actual innovation, the kind that makes life better, without making someone else's life worse, would look really different. And we'd recognize it, because it would cost us less, not more.